the Republican Party has made peace with being the party of Donald Trump. It is very clearly enabling Trump to get through this campaign. Radical destruction of the way things are done in the country. This is part of a larger thing that I described as freedom from fact.
Welcome again to the library at Dartington, and this time I'm delighted to welcome Jay Rosen. Jay is a professor of journalism at New York University, and he's here at the Byline Festival giving a talk about what Trump's election, if it happens in November 2024, will mean for the rest of us. But if you're watching this, you probably weren't at the festival, so we're going to give you the chance to hear now what Jay told the audience. So, Jay, firstly, how likely do you think it is that Trump will be elected in November 2024?
He's the favorite. He has to be considered the favorite, and so it's extremely likely. It's dangerously likely. And he has momentum, and right now with the spectacular events with Joe Biden of the last couple weeks, the situation is even worse. So we're at a very serious and very potentially deadly situation for American democracy.
You're putting it in almost apocalyptic terms. How so?
Well, that's because there's never been a candidate like him. And some of the things that he is saying he will do and he's quite capable of doing are going to undo a democratic society, or could. And many of the barriers that would prevent that kind of thing have been run over, the most important of which is Supreme Court. Would ordinarily be the agent that puts a halt or a limit on how bad it could get. But now we have a Supreme Court, because of the Republican Party's nominations to it, that doesn't function like that anymore. In fact, it is very clearly enabling Trump to get through this campaign without facing trial for all of the things that he is facing trial from. So it's a unique moment and very dangerous. Another thing you have to remember is a huge portion of American homes include guns. So if you think about things getting out of hand in a country with more guns than anybody, there's that in the background. It's probably going to be a close election. So a close election also, gets people's blood going. There's just a lot of reasons to have a sense of foreboding.
We spoke on the Byline podcast recently about Leonard Leo, who has funded various right-wing think tanks and institutions and politicians, and he has had a hand in the appointment of 6 Supreme Court judges, or at least campaigned for 5 of them, and helped Clarence Harris as an advisor when he was appointed to the Supreme Court. And the suggestion made in that podcast was that really they're promoting a very right-wing, very traditional Catholic agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recognize that? Do you think that's what lies behind the decision to grant presidents immunity so long as they are acting within the terms of their office?
That's a serious charge. I don't know enough about Catholic doctrine to really give a good answer to that. So caution says don't.
Fair enough. There is Project 2025. So this is seen as being Trump's manifesto if he wins election again. How does that differ from what Trump has said previously? And why would progressives like you be wary of it?
Well, when the first time he ran, he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't expect to win. He didn't know who should be part of government because he hadn't spent any time thinking about government. He was completely unqualified for the position and lazy about learning. But now he has a much better sense of what he wants to accomplish, especially what he wants to tear down and destroy. And he is no longer going to resort to a habit he called central casting, where you just take people who look the part, and you don't care what they think or what the relationship is between your agenda and their agenda. That's kind of gone to the background now. And the Republican Party has made peace with being the party of Donald Trump. And so the two operations are working together in a way that they weren't in his first election. And many of the things that the 2025 agenda describe are just radical destruction of the way things are done in the country. But also, I think another really important part about that document is the communication system, the media system has changed in ways that almost everybody doesn't really recognize day to day. And this is one of them, where it used to be when you had controversial plans for what to do if you're elected, you kept them secret until the moment you spring them on unaware people, right? And now what Trump and people who are learning from Trump do is they parade their most extreme ideas and demands in public to create a kind of chaos or an environment of threat. And they hope to frighten their opponents that way, but also turn off some people to listening to them. And they're out front with, crazy sorts of extreme behavior, not trying to conceal it at all, but making it part of their political style, which is something that I think we need to understand better. Trump's political style is not to cover up and keep things secret. It's to parade his worst ideas and shock. So this shock treatment is enabled in some ways by the fact that the media system doesn't really have a coherent public at the receiving end of it. The fragmentation of the media world is part of what makes Trump's political style work.
And I've heard you talking on a panel about the way in which the big newspapers in New York and Washington will be created by and read by progressives, read by Democrats. So even if they attempt to hold Trump and other candidates to account, the people who might benefit from reading that hold to account are elsewhere.
That's right. There's no place where the New York Times and the Washington Post meet the typical MAGA voter. It doesn't happen. And Trump has been successful in his description of the mainstream media as the enemy of the people, and his repeat ritual of sort of pointing them out and literally pointing his finger at them, to the point where it's gone way beyond something that I used to study of charges of media bias from so-called conservatives against what they considered to be the liberal media. That was like 20 years ago. Now things have evolved far beyond that, where Trump's fans assume that if a fact or a claim or a charge was reported on in the elite newspapers, that meant it was by definition made up, not true. And so this is part of a larger thing that I described as freedom from fact. I'm going to say it again, freedom from fact. That is an essential component of Trump's political style and of the bond that he has with his most ardent supporters. And when people are kind of high on freedom from fact, meaning they don't have to show evidence, they don't care about documentation, they don't care if things are true in the old-fashioned sense of truth, like evidence and a certain fidelity to fact that was said to be important for serious, powerful people. I can remember easily from a couple of presidents ago how insistent White House staffs were. If their candidate or the president made a factual error, that was something that was extremely important. You had to correct it the next day, or it would kind of fester, and the media would keep reporting on it. And it was a serious problem if the president was wrong about something. We are so far beyond that now with the proven effectiveness of freedom from fact that this is, I think, going to be one of the big quote unquote innovations that Trump brings to politics, not just in the U.S. but around the globe for these Trump wannabes that do exist, and those who are kind of ahead of Trump in this political style, like the head of, like in Hungary.